Okay, so this is kind of a silly program. We're mimicking a toy shop, and I'm going to use a loop to stock the shelves. So we've got teddy bears in stock and magic 8 balls in stock. And so I'm going to run this. I'm using, here we go. Okay, there are the teddy bears, the magic 8 balls. You can see online GDB is dropping the ball on some of these. Not our fault. Okay, so what's going on here? Well, this is also like the last program. This is condition-controlled repetition, but I would call this counter-controlled repetition. I put 500 teddy bears on the shelf and 250 magic 8 balls. So how did I do that? So what I did is I created a loop counter. We would call that a loop counter. I called it count. You can call it anything you want. I called it count, and I initialized it to 0. So you can start counting at 0 or 1. You can start counting anywhere, but it's typical to start counting at 0 or 1. But, okay, so now I'm setting up the loop. I'm saying, well, count is less than 500. Okay, I'm going to print a teddy bear. This, I don't know if we've come across this yet in our programs or if it's been in your book up until now, but this is necessary. Watch what happens if I take this out, this end thing out. Okay, look at that. Did you see those teddy bears all on one line, one vertical line? So basically, the print function here is always going to give you a line feed by default, and if you don't want that, then you have to override what is called the end argument. So by default, this end argument has this value, the line feed. Okay, but if you the new line, and so like that's why we don't have to mention it. If we want a new line, then you don't have to do anything. But if you don't want that, then you have to override this and explicitly say, no, I want this. I'll just put a null string in here. You could do a space if you want the teddy bear spaced out or a little bit better. But that's that. Okay, so yeah. So very importantly, if you're doing counter-controlled repetition, you have to make sure you increment your loop counter variable. So with every iteration of the loop, I want to add 1 to that count variable. So that value is going to grow and grow and grow and grow and grow and eventually reach 500, at which point the loop ends and the teddy bears stop. So, I mean, watch what happens if I forget that line and I run this. Okay, it's just teddy bears, and it doesn't stop. I have like an endless loop or an infinite loop. So you have to be careful there. So, yeah, so that's that. And I have the magic 8 ball set up the same way. I used a different loop counter. I could have just recycled the count variable, but I wanted to mix it up just so you can see it's you know, it can be whatever you want. Sometimes I like little I as like an integer variable. That tends to be my go-to loop counter, like in other classes. Other languages that I teach, but you know, again, you can use anything. I for like an integer. That's a common loop counter. But anyway, so there you have it. We have I equals 0. I'm going. Oh, you know what? Actually, this is interesting. This is a mistake I made. So I start counting at 0. If I want 250 teddy bears, I have set this up incorrectly. Okay, I'm saying okay, start counting at 0. And we're going to keep going while I is less than or equal to 250. So if we were to count that out on our fingers, we would say 0, 1, 2, 3, and so on, all the way up to 250. And that last finger is 250. That's 251 iterations, right? Because I started counting at 0, so I have an extra in there. So that's 251 teddy bears. It was not my intention. So what do I have to do? I've got a couple of choices. Either get rid of this. Okay, now I'm counting 0 through 249. Or if I keep that, I need to start counting at 1 as opposed to 0. Okay, so either way is going to work there. All right, so yeah. That is it. So that is counter-controlled repetition. Still condition-controlled because these are conditions that evaluate to true or false, but counter-controlled as opposed to user-controlled, like with those games we talked about where the user is just saying yes, yes, yes until they decide to stop.